Hey everyone, and welcome to the Crocheted Market Bag series. We are starting off with this amazing tote bag, which is like beautiful. I love this. It was definitely a labor of love, and I'm sure you guys will eventually quickly know what I'm talking about. This thing has got some heft to it. It is going to like hold so much, and I'm so excited to actually use it. I will show it off to you guys first before I take it out. But yeah, this is the first project. Now, the pattern, and hopefully you guys have all purchased this. I forgot to look and see if it's free on her website. It might be, but I highly recommend getting the printed pattern so that you can just print it off and not have all those ads and stuff in the way. And also it supports her. She clearly put a lot of work into designing this, and it's a well-designed, well-written pattern. There are pictures throughout that show you placement for like your hook and things, and then also tips on how to sew in the straps in the pocket. But there was a few things that I thought I would show you, because I haven't found a video for this. At the time of filming, I haven't done like a super deep dive to see if there is a tutorial, but I thought I would go over a few things, and then in class I will give you like a cheat sheet of my suggestions, but we'll go through them here now. Okay, as you can see, I have lots of notes on my pattern. This is how I keep track of my rows. You do you. So, okay, there are many funny abbreviations, and she lays them all out in the special stitches. And I highly recommend reading all of these words. I know I say that a lot, to read all the words, but these stitch descriptions are actually really good. But I'm going to go through some of these for a quick visual for those of you that like to have that visual touchstone as well. Okay, so we are using the 24/7 cotton, and I'm going to use a little bit of this light gray to show you a couple of these stitches. And I'm not going to go through the full market bag with you guys because, quite frankly, A, I don't have the time, B, my wrist needs a little bit of a break. So, but I'm going to go through a few of them that I found tricky at first. Okay, so the pattern calls for a 4mm hook. This is on the smaller size for this yarn. But to get the tightness of these stitches, to get this sort of thickness, I guess, that's not quite the right word that I'm looking for, but this is a really like solid construction tote, and I think to achieve that, going with a smaller hook is definitely the way to go. If you are a super tight crocheter, you might want to go up to 4.5, but I would maybe try it with the 4, see how it goes. I tend to be on the tight side, so I started with a 4.5, and after I made my first couple of rows, I realized it was too big. Let's just do a little measurement and see. I think I was pretty close to gauge. So the bottom of my market bag is about 16 1/4 inches. And it's 12 inches high, 15 inches wide, 4 inches deep. So I'm still a little bit over what she has said. Okay, quite a bit over what she has said. when I started, like I said, I started with a 4.5 and it was way too big. So I went down to a 4. And like you've seen, it's still a little bit big. That's probably why I ended up using extra white for my white section, because I was just over gauge. Does gauge matter in this particular instant? Probably not, but just keep it in mind that you probably will need an extra ball of the body color. Okay, I wanted to go over the bottom section, which uses the thermal stitch. And I'm not going to do the full the full bottom, but let's do a little bit of it. So it starts with a chain of 77. So I'm just going to do like 21. And it says row 1, flip chain over, single crochet in the bottom bump. So single crochet in bottom bump, in brackets, loop of second chain from the hook. So these are your bottom bumps. Anybody who's doing the washcloth class with me is familiar that I prefer to work into my bottom bumps, back bars, whatever you want to call them, of my foundation chain. So second chain, that's your first chain, that first bump, that's your second chain. So single crochet into the second chain. And then each chain all the way across. So that's what I'm going to do. The working into the back, the back bar, bottom bump, whatever you want to call it, is a little bit slower. I prefer it because I like the finished edge. In this particular case, you need to do this because you need to have a certain like loop stitch combination to make the thermal stitch properly. So I'm not going to give you choice on this one. You need to work into your back bar, period, end of story. Okay, I've got my single crochets done. So now I'm going to bring it in as close as I can so that you guys can see this as clearly as possible. So now we are going to do what they call a thermal stitch. And to do the thermal stitch, you're actually going to rotate your work so it's like up and down, not side to side. And we are going to, first of all, we need to chain one. This is my last stitch here, and if I were working back along the row as normal, this is my front loop, that's my back loop. So I am going to insert into my back loop here, and then I'm going to come down into my chain and I'm going to insert into my back loop there. Now, here's where it's a little bit one of those terminology things, right? So to me, that's the front loop, but actually it is the back loop because you're working on it like when you work down this way, that was the back loop. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but because we're working back down at the opposite way that we worked it, the front loop becomes a back loop, the back loop becomes a front loop. Clear as mud? Okay, but this is where we need to insert our hook. So the back loop of the stitch in the row, and then the back loop, which looks like the front loop of the stitch from your chain row. Yarn over, pull through those 2 loops, and then finish your single crochet. So instead of making your single crochet underneath the V of the row, you're making it underneath the V of the side. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm just trying to find ways to make it stick in your head. Okay, so next stitch, back loop, come down to the chain, pick up that back loop, top loop, whatever you call it, yarn over, complete your single crochet. So we're going to do that all the way down the row. Now it can be easy to lose track of which stitches you have gone into and which you haven't. But keep an eye out for where the yarn is coming out of. You've already worked that stitch. You need to go into the next one. So this is how you work the thermal stitch. Now this first row of thermal stitch is going to be a little bit slower because you're picking up the loops from your chain. I found as my piece got bigger, and I suppose this is the same with every piece of crochet, as it gets bigger and you have more to hold on to and you get more familiar with the stitches, it's easier to see these loops. But I want to show you when I get to the next row, kind of a trick that, whoops, made it easier for me to keep working these. So I'm going to continue working this all the way down my chain, and then I will show you what we do at the end. This is what that first row will look like when you're done. Take a moment, count your stitches, make sure you haven't skipped any, you haven't picked up any extras. I've only got 20 stitches on my sample, so this is not a big deal for me to count every row. When you have 76, it is more of a big deal, so I would highly recommend using stitch markers. I think I had one every 15 stitches, and then I also had one in that extra stitch because I found that I would forget which side had the 16, and I ended up putting them on both sides and quickly lost count. So my tip for you. Okay. Now that you are at this point, you're ready to go on to row 3, and we're just going to keep doing the thermal stitch. I just wanted to show you what it looks like when you're not going into the chain. So at the end of each row, you're going to chain 1 and turn, but instead of turning like a page in a book, so you're going back the way, you just kind of turn it down. Find that back loop of the top stitch, and now you're looking for the unworked loop from the bottom, from the previous row, and it's that one there. You can see it kind of poking up here. That's where you need to work. So what I started doing was, as I held my work sort of up and down, I could squeeze these together, and then you see how these are coming closer together. That makes it easier to find them. So then my next stitch, and I know that I've just worked this one because that's where my yarn is coming out of. So my next one is down here and there. And then we come down again and we pick up the unworked loop. So I can kind of squeeze the two sides together and bring those loops together, and that makes it easier to find where I'm putting my stitches. But it can get pretty confusing, and if you're working with a dark yarn, I did find it tricky with the navy. I highly recommend using some sort of headlamp, neck light, anything, any extra light. Sit outside in the sunshine if you can, and work there. Get as much light on this as possible, and it will help you out a lot. The first stitch and the last stitch of any row of any stitch tends to be the hardest to find. So I would highly recommend using stitch markers. I just got to dig that one out a little bit. And there we go. Each row you chain one and turn. And again, I'm not turning it like a page in the book. I'm just sort of flipping it down so that I can keep working the next row. And these loops are waiting for me right here. Okay, so I hope that makes sense for you and will help you get the thermal stitch done. Now clearly this is not the entire 33 rows that you guys will be doing of the thermal stitch, but I just wanted to go over a couple of the other stitches that you will see. So you do the thermal stitch for 33 rows, and then on row 34 you get the abbreviation TSFBBL, which is thermal stitch, front loop, back loop. Yes, front loop, back loop. What that means is this: you're going to chain one and turn like you have been doing, and then instead of just picking up the back loop only, you are going to go under the whole front loop, back loop of the stitch and that bottom unworked loop from the row below. So this is your final row of the base of the bag. And I've just lost where I was. Okay, next stitch. So under the front loop, back loop of your stitch, pick up that unworked, lost it. Pick up that unworked loop from the row below and complete your single crochet. So you're going to work this all the way down, and then we are going to work around your base. So that is my last stitch, and as you can see, it's closed up. When you were doing the thermal stitch, you always had that unworked, sorry, just off camera there. You always had that unworked loop working under both loops, and that unworked loop has now sort of closed it off. So now we're going to single crochet all the way around. And when you get to the ends, even though you have done 34 rows, it asks you to put 18 single crochets evenly spaced along that each end, each side. So because your thermal stitches are so tight together, I think what I did is I kind of went in between, like there's kind of ridges and bumps, and I think I just kind of went into the bumps. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to work a couple rows of the body to show you how that is done. I have finished doing my single crochets all the way around, and as you can see, my tail is on the bottom left, which is where it needs to be. This is the right side when you've gone all the way around. So this is going to be actually the bottom of the bag. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention is I found it really helpful to put stitch markers into the chain one spaces, or the chain ones, I guess. You're going to skip those as we do this next round, but I just found it really helpful to have them there. So now we're going to start doing the body of the bag, and that is done in a continuous round. So it's very, 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 very important to have a stitch marker. Now I have chosen a stitch marker that is a different color from my corners, and then I realized that this is just a teeny tiny little sample, but yours, you've got a crap ton of stitches, I think it was 196 all the way around by the time you're done. So I had stitch markers at every, I think it was 20 or 50 or something stitches, just to keep me on track. So I always had a different colored one in the first stitch of the round. Now the instructions say to actually put your stitch marker in the last stitch of your round. I don't like doing that, so this is a personal thing. So if you are more comfortable having your stitch marker in the last stitch of a continuous round, then go ahead and do that. You got to do what is comfortable to you. I like having it in the first stitch because I tend to do my stitch counts going from my last stitch. So if this is the first stitch of my round, when I come up to here, I come up to my stitch marker and I need to count my stitches, I start with the last stitch that I've just made and I count backwards. And then I know when I get to that first stitch if my count is right or not. That makes sense? Anyways, same principle, I guess, works if you put it in your last stitch, but that's what I've always done. That's what my brain likes. So that's what I did for this bag. You do you though, okay? So we've done our single crochets. Now we're going to start working on the body of the bag. And the first abbreviation that you see is SCBTLO, which means single crochet back and third loop only. You might think that there's no third loop on a single crochet. But let's take a closer look at these stitches. So this is the first stitch of my round. You can see my front loop and my back loop. If I rotate it towards me, this bar that runs directly underneath the back loop, that is your third loop. So that's what we're going to be stitching in. So I'm going to rotate it towards me, pick up that back loop and that third loop. It's going to be tight. So I found that I had to use my fingernail to get in there. Super tight, apparently. Now, that's my first stitch of the round, so I'm going to put my stitch marker in it. Go to my next stitch, back loop, find that third loop. So yeah, this round is slow. But it's doable. Probably more doable for you because you're not trying to film it at the same time. Okay. So I'm going to keep doing that all the way around. When you get to the corners, you do not go into your chain ones, you skip them. So you would do your single crochet on this side, and then you'd skip your chain one, and you'd find your single crochet on the other side of your corner, and you'd do that. That took some effort, but that round is done. Now we are going to go on to the next round, and we're adding a few stitches into this round. I left my stitch markers in there because they show me where the corners are, and those are where we're going to add some stitches in. So, like I said, we're not joining, so there's no slip stitches or anything like that, which is why it's really, I cannot stress this enough, really important to always put your stitch marker right back into the first stitch or the last stitch, whichever you're doing, at the end of each round or the beginning of each round, whatever it is you're doing. My stitch marker is in the first stitch of the round, so as soon as I make this first stitch, I need to put my stitch marker back in. Okay, we are going to start with a half double crochet in the first stitch. Sorry, we are starting with 2 half double crochets in the first stitch, but I'm going to make my first half double crochet and then I'm going to put my stitch marker back in. Now I'm going to add 1 more half double crochet into that same stitch, and now On yours, you're going to be doing this, what they call a half herringbone single crochet for the next 74 stitches, which takes you down the length of your bag. I don't have 74, I have like 20. So, but this is how we do the half herringbone single crochet. So that's the abbreviation HHSC. So looking at our half double crochet, we have these 3 vertical bars. To make your half herringbone single crochet, you start in that last vertical bar of the half double crochet you've just completed, and then you're going into the next stitch, pulling up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Next stitch, start in that last vertical bar, go into your next stitch, pull up a loop, complete your stitch into that last bar, into the stitch, complete your stitch. So this is what they call the half herringbone single crochet. So you're going to do this for this round. When you get to your corners, you are going to add some stitches in. So I'm just going to do this all the way to the corner, and then I will show you what we do in the corner. Okay, I am at my corner, basically where my stitch marker is, and over these next 2 stitches you're putting in 2 half double crochets. So this is just kind of getting you around the corner with a bit of an increase so that you do actually get like a nice defined corner. I think this is the only round that you have increases. So once you've put the 2 half double crochets in those 2 stitches, then you're going to continue with your half herringbone single crochets until your next corner. So I'm at my next corner. I'm going to put 2 half double crochets in these 2 stitches. And then I will repeat that along this other edge. So I'm going to do that, and then I will come around and we'll talk about the next bit of the bag. Right, so that's all done. And as you can see, we're starting to sort of form our little bag. Okay, so now from for you guys, from this point on, you should have 196 stitches in each round. So adding those 2 half double crochets in two stitches in each corner should have taken your stitch count up to 196. If you do not have 196 stitches, you need to frog back and figure out where you went wrong and fix it. You need to have 196 stitches. You need to have 196 stitches in each round. Okay. Now, from now on, until we change color, we are going to be doing what they call, the abbreviation is a whole lot of letters. HHSCBTLO, which is a half herringbone single crochet back loop third loop only. I know, it's a mouthful, but I will break it down for you. So we're back at the first stitch. I know that because it's my yellow stitch marker. So we're going to start it like we did before, by going into that last vertical bar of the stitch previous. But instead of going underneath the V of the stitch, we are going to go into the back loop and the third loop. So just like the single crochet in the back loop and the third loop, we are going to be doing that for this. Our third loops, though, are easier to see because we've been doing these half herringbone stitches, and so our third loops are a lot easier to get at. So start in that last vertical bar of your previous stitch. Try not to make it all tight like I did there. Go into the back loop and the third loop. So just kind of rotate your work towards you and find that sort of bottom V. Yarn over, pull through. So start in that last vertical bar, rotate your work, back loop, third loop. Yarn over, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through. And what this does is it pushes out that front loop, and you get this lovely almost knit kind of look to the front. Okay, so you're going to keep doing that all the way around. Back loop, third loop, back loop, third loop. Okay, you're going to do that all the way around your bag until you get to your stitch marker again. However you are counting stitches, just make sure every round you have 196. I found that I didn't lose any stitches at this point. I did lose some stitches when we made the slits for the straps. So I will go over that in a little bit, but this is what your work should be looking like. And this is what gives you this almost like sideways knitting kind of pattern. Okay, so you're going to do that until you change color, and I will go over that next. Once you reach row 18, like you finished round 18, it is time to change color. So there are 2 color changes on the tote. The first one here after round 18, and then you do this whole white section, and I will go over this how to make the slits in a minute, and then you change color again back to your color A, and you finish off with your color A. So the beginning round of each color change has a different stitch, has different stitches for the first couple of rounds. And then you get back into that same stitch that we've been doing, the half herringbone single crochet back and third loop only. So let's go over those 2 sort of transition rounds, and yeah, let's take a look at that. Okay, so I've got my little sample piece here, and I've got a second color. I am at my last stitch there. I have completed the last stitch of my round. And normally we would, if we're changing color, we would change color in this last stitch, and then the next stitch would start the new color. However, the instructions say join color B in first stitch of round. So we are going to be doing a SLSTBTLO, which is a slip stitch back and third loop only. So I'm going to take my color A, I'm going to insert into the back and third loop of that next stitch, and then going to drop my color A, attach my color B, and pull through for a slip stitch. And then I am going to mark that as my first stitch of the round. And I realize it looks like a gray stitch. It's just the nature of the pattern. Where is my little end there? Okay, and then we are going to continue on. So slip stitch back and third loop only. So we're not, there is no sort of vertical bar to go through here. We're just going straight into that sort of bottom V, if you want to call it that, the back loop and third loop, yarning over and then yarning through for our slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, yarn through. We will be working into these slip stitches, so try not to make them super tight, but you don't want them too loose as well. You definitely want this to flow with the rest of your work. And you're just going to work this all the way around every stitch, back loop, third loop, slip stitch. So I'm going to continue doing that. I'll meet you up at the beginning and we will see how to proceed and how to get back into pattern. Slip stitch round is complete. I am back at my stitch marker. Now note that it's still a gray stitch, which you would think would not be the first stitch of the round, but remember we changed color in that stitch, so that still has the color, the top color of your color A. I don't know if I'm making sense, but so now we need to get back to doing our half herringbone. So to get back to our half herringbone, we need to start with a half double crochet. Anytime we need to restart our half herringbone stitch pattern, we start with a half double crochet because that gives us our 3 vertical bars. So with the slip stitches, we don't have a third loop for the slip stitches. Don't think that this is a third loop. That's your row below. So we're going to be working under the 2 loops of our slip stitches, basically. So we're half double crocheting into that first stitch of the round, despite it looking like it belongs in the previous round. This is why we use a stitch marker, because otherwise we would confuse ourselves. So half double crochet under both loops of that slip stitch, and then we can start our half herringbone pattern again. So you go into that third bar, into the next stitch, and complete our half herringbone single crochet. Third bar under your slip stitch. This is why I said to try and keep your slip stitches loose, not too loose, but loose enough that we can work under them. I don't think I did a good job, but there we go. So now we're back into pattern, and you're going to continue that for several more rounds. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to finish this round, and then I'm going to go over how to do the holes to make the straps, because that there's a trick there that I think is really important, because I made the mistake. So I'm trying to teach you, or trying to give you all my tips and tricks so you don't make the same mistakes. See you then. Let's take a look at round 40. So round 40 is where we are adding our chain 8 sections, which is like the little gaps where the straps go. So right here, this started with a chain 8. So what I put into the tip sheet is that I recommend, before you start crocheting the round, to take the time and count out all the stitches you need and put stitch markers where your chain 8, skip 8 sections are. I don't have the same number of stitches, obviously, on my little like sample swatch here. So I just put a stitch marker at this is stitch number 8. So that's my, if I'm going through this, it says to half herringbone single crochet, back loop, third loop, 21 stitches. So let's pretend that's my 21st stitch. And then it says to chain 8. So I'll do that in a second. And it says skip 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's, I put the stitch marker in that 8th stitch. So then the next stitch is where I need to go. So let's chain 8, and then my next stitch is actually a half double crochet. And instead of going back loop, third loop, I'm going to go under the front loop and back loop. Do my half double crochet. Now, we need to work into this half double crochet on the next round. And the first time I attempted this bag, I missed this stitch. I thought it was one of the chains, and so I missed it, and I lost 4 stitches because there's 4 slits. I lost 4 stitches in my round, and like a stupid idiot, I kept going for a couple more rounds thinking, I don't know what I was thinking, that it would just magically like fix itself, but I ended up frogging all the way back and starting this round again, so that I could figure out what was going on. And that's what I discovered. I had not stitched into this half double crochet. So I'm recommending that you mark it. Okay, so now that you have a half double crochet, you can continue on in stitch pattern all the way around until your next stitch marker, which indicates your next slit. Now, what I'm going to do for demo purposes is just do the half herringbone all the way around, and then we're going to go over how to work the next round. So I'll be back. I'm just going to go around and I'm going to come right back to here, and then we'll go over how to work over this chain. Okay, I've come around. I've got one more of my half herringbone stitches to do, and then I reach my chain 8, and into the chain 8 we are going to half double crochet, and you're going to half double crochet into the chain, not around the chain. So we're going to yarn over. This is my first chain. Now I tried to grab 2 strands of the chain just to give a little bit more stability, and we're not doing the half herringbone, so don't be tempted to go into that 3rd bar. You just need to find your next chain space, and I admit I did find it tricky. So if you need to, and you need to like mark off each chain, you go for it. There are no stitch marker police. So if you're having trouble seeing where your chains are, then you do that. The important thing is to get 8 stitches in, because that brings us back to the right stitch count. So long as you remembered to mark your the half double crochet that we are about to get to. So I think I have one more chain, which has gotten a little bit squished just because I've been working into all the other ones. That tends to happen. Come on. There we go. I'm just going to give that a quick count. Make sure I've got 8 of those half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. So now I'm up to that half double crochet from the round below that indicates the last stitch of the chain, and I need to put in, this is my first of the half herringbone stitches. So if you remember to mark that half double crochet at the end of every chain space, your stitch count will be correct at the end of your round, and your little slits should look something like that. And then once you have finished this round and filling in all of your chain spaces, you're just going to do the half herringbone single crochets for several more rounds. This is all in your color B, and then you're going to switch back to your color A again. And when we end with slip stitches. Now this is the one abbreviation that she doesn't spell out, but it is just a slip stitch into the 3rd loop only. Okay, so TLO, 3rd loop only. And then we can work on the straps. The next part is to do the straps. So we've got the body finished, and now we're going to do the straps. Now I've already done one, and this is what it looks like. And I'll go through this later, but basically the premise is that they sort of slide in there like that, and then they get sewn down like so. And as you can see, it is fairly thick. We're using the same stitch that we've used throughout, a variation of, which makes it nice and thick because you're getting that sort of almost double thickness stitch as you go. So let's make it together, make the second one together. Now I have already chained my 170. And what I wanted to show you guys was my trick for anything that requires a long chain. I put stitch markers every 20 chains. So that's what I've done for the starting chain. I have 170. Now I'm just going to double check that I have 10 at the end. Yeah, I still do. I haven't pulled anything out as I've been moving it around. Okay, so once you have your 170 chains, oh goodness, we are going to half double crochet in the second bump from the bottom. Now she is very specifically asking to go into the back bars. I think that's because it's going to give that nice finished edge on each side. If I pull my finished one back, each side has nice finished edges. Okay? So that does require working into the back bar, which I know is slower, but will give us the finished result that we are looking for. So we're going to half double crochet in the second chain from the hook. So the very first stitch that we're working, which is the second chain from the hook. And then we are doing half herringbone single crochet. So for the half herringbone single crochet, you're going to find that, I'm going to call it a third loop, which is going to confuse everybody, I think, because it's not like the third loop of a stitch. It's like the third bar of your half double crochet. It's the one farthest from your hook. So for me, being right-handed, it's the one on the far left. If you're left-handed, it will be the one on the far right. So you're going to insert into that, and then you are going to insert into the next back bar, the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. And then you're just going to repeat that down the chain. So insert into that farthest vertical bar, and then into the back bump, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, so we're going to do that all the way down. You'll have 169 stitches at the end of this row. So I'm going to continue doing that, and then I will come back and we'll do the next row. I have finished those half herringbone single crochets all the way down, and I am ready to start row number 2. So I've already done my chain 1. We're going to turn, and then it says to slip stitch through the back and third loop only. So that's the abbreviation SLSTBTLO. So when we look at our stitch, we've got these 3 loops on the top. Let's just see if I can come in nice and close. So we've got a loop here, a loop here, and a loop here. The way the stitch is formed, everything is sort of rotated a little bit. Like that's kind of the character of the herringbone stitch. So it would be tempting to think that this here is actually your third loop, but it's not. That is your front loop, that is your back loop, that is your third loop. So when we are, sorry, I'm just gonna start again, orientate myself. So we're gonna chain, we're gonna turn, front loop, back loop, third loop. So these are the 2 loops that we are making our slip stitch under. So it's going to sort of look and feel like a regular stitch. But this is where she wants us to put our stitches. So that's where we're putting them. So we're going to slip stitch all the way down. And when we come back, we are going to be working into the gaps that are forming at the back. So slip stitch all the way down, and I will meet you and we'll go through that row 3 together. Right, so row 2 is complete. Let's move on to row 3. We're going to chain 1 and turn, and then in the first stitch only, we are doing the extended half double crochet, and this is where these gaps come into play that I talked about earlier. So the extended half double crochet, we are going to start with a yarn over, and instead of going through the stitches, we are going to go into this gap down here. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then complete your half double crochet as normal, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So you just do that in the first stitch, and then you do the extended half herringbone single crochet. It's a mouthful. So just like the half herringbone single crochet, we are going to start in that farthest loop from our hook, the farthest vertical bar, and then we are going to go into the next gap. So beneath the stitches, we're going to work into these spaces. 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. So that is the extended half herringbone single crochet. And that is what we're going to do all the way down. So insert, let's see. I know she has photos, but it's sometimes easier to see on a video. So insert into that farthest vertical bar, insert into this hole. So if you pull your stitches apart, you see these holes here. So that's where the next stitch goes. Next stitch, next stitch. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so insert into that farthest vertical bar and then into that next gap. Yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Insert into that farthest bar and then into the gap, yarn over, pull up a loop, and complete your stitch. So that's what we're going to do all the way down. Now, that is basically it for the straps. You're going to repeat your row 2, which is your slip stitch row, and then your row 3, which starts with that first extended half double crochet, and then you're doing the extended half herringbone single crochet. Goodness me, such a mouthful. All the way down. And you want to have a total of 3 rows of this slip stitch half herringbone single crochet row, and then you're going to end with a slip stitch row. Yeah, that's it. And this is what it looks like when it's complete. So this is the right side, and I haven't tried to block this or anything. I think I might, because it is sort of twisting a little bit, but that is the right side, And then that is your wrong side. And that is a strap. Okay. We're almost there, guys. Everything is done. Pockets are made, and it's time to sew them in, as well as the straps. Before I do the straps, I just want to say a couple of words about the pocket. Now, I didn't feel like I needed to describe to you how to make them, because it's just single crochet. There's no fancy stitches. It is just rows and rows of single crochet, and one is taller than the other, but they should both be the same width. So let's talk about the straps and how to pin them and sew them together. So first of all, you need to turn your bag inside out, and I have tried to make it as sort of square as possible. Just get this corner out, because you want it to be lined up nice and square. Now, I have gone ahead and I have sewn this one in, and we can talk about that in a minute. But this one is just pinned. And so this is what I have done. I have used stitch markers, and I have just pinned it with stitch markers. So let's do the other side, which in the instructions you're supposed to do before you would do any sewing. But with the wrong side facing you, you're going to take your strap, and as I went over earlier, this side with the lovely, like almost crosshatch pattern on it, that is the right side of the strap. This side is the wrong side of the strap. So we want to have the wrong side sort of facing up, and you're going to go from what is currently the inside but is actually the outside, if that makes sense, and come into the inside. So I'm just going to lay that down, pull the other strap around, and it comes through the other hole. Now, she talks about coming down 5 rows. So I decided to ignore this row where the we made the chain, and just do the first sort of complete row underneath. Let's see if I can zoom in and we can look at that. So I'm ignoring this chain, and I'm just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to line up my strap there. Now I'm going to pin this one side, and then I'm going to make sure that my strap lengths are the same before I pin the other side. And on this bottom section, I'm just using 4 stitch markers to pin it. Okay, so now I'm going to take my straps, and I'm going to make sure that they are the same length, which probably means that that is going to be quite a bit longer on that one side. So I can adjust that. Sorry, I'm all zoomed in. I'm going to make sure that these straps are the same length, which means that this side here looks like it's going to be sewn in a lot deeper than that side. So I can adjust that and make it even. But first I want to make sure that these straps are the same length. This is very hard to fit on my little camera here. Yeah, whoops. Okay, so I'm just gonna fiddle with that. I'll be right back. Okay, I turned it this way. Maybe we can fit it all in. So what I did was I actually readjusted everything. I lined up the 2 slits so they're aligned. That makes sense. You're lining up so they're aligned. And then I've sort of found where the bottom of the other strap is, and that's where I've pinned it. So on the The first one I did, I definitely pinned it at the 5th row down. This one is maybe a little bit further down. I'm not going to worry about that. And now I'm lining these up so they are the same length. I'm going to come over here, make sure these slits are aligned. And then this strap, it must just be longer. Maybe my tension was a little bit different. I also found, which you've probably noticed and we might have discussed in class, that one edge of the strap is kind of on an angle. I think that's just the nature of the stitches. Because I was very careful and my stitch count was accurate. So I am choosing to believe it is the nature of the stitches and not that I've done something wrong. But you never know. Okay, so now that those are attached, we can very carefully turn this right side out again. And I'll lay it this way so we can see most of it. And now we can make sure that these straps on the outside are lined up with the other ones that I've already pinned. And then we get to pin these in place. So I'm going to start at the top and I'm just going to put a couple of stitch markers in there. And I need some more stitch markers. I'm going to come over to this side. Make sure those are in line. And stitch these, or pin these in place. And then I came down and, see, this is pulled up a bit. I pinned down here. And then I even put 2 in the middle just to keep it straight while I sewed. So you can use regular straight pins if you would prefer. I tend to hurt myself when I use regular straight pins, so I'm using stitch markers. Okay, so that one's pinned. I just keep making sure that my straps are still the same length. This one's feeling longer to me now all of a sudden. I think it got pulled up there. Okay, so now those are all pinned in place and we can start stitching. So like I said, I already stitched down one side. The instructions say flip it right out, inside out again, and you start by stitching down the bottom bit. So what I've done, zoom in so we can maybe see this a little bit better. I started in one corner and I went all the way around, and then I stitched across there to try and join that. Then I turned it right side out again, and my needle was down here, so I pushed my needle through and I kept stitching. I stitched all the way to the top. I came around to the back and I stitched the back down, and then I stitched down here, and then my final stitching was along the bottom here. I think I will come in with some white cotton. I have extra white cotton, and just kind of seal up the hole. There's not really one on this side, but there's one there, and I think it was just that my slit was a little bit wider than the 1 inch of my strap. But that is basically how you sew it down. The pockets are going to be done in a similar fashion, and they go in between the straps. So one side has the longer pocket, the other side has the shorter pocket, and I'm just going to use stitch markers and then use some of the extra blue thread and stitch those down. And then our tote bag is done. And it is, if I may say so myself, gorgeous. I hope that you have enjoyed this process as much as I have. I know it's been a lot. I found these stitches to be quite sort of labor intensive, but the thickness of the fabric and the sturdiness that this tote bag I think is going to have, especially with that thermal stitch on the bottom here, is really going to be worth it. So thank you so much. I can't wait to see everyone's completed tote bags, and yeah, have fun sewing up.